Democracy requires inquiry and participation, so thank you to the audience here and watching online. And a special thank you to all the candidates who are running for office in Amherst's 2025 municipal elections. My name is Charlotte McLaughlin, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. Why, thank you. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization whose mission is to encourage informed and active citizen participation in government. We are partnering tonight with Amherst Media, who is live streaming and recording this event. The recording will be rebroadcast later until Election Day and also available on Amherst Media's YouTube channel. And as we do not have time for the candidates to introduce themselves tonight, we encourage you to take a look at the candidate statements on Amherst Media's YouTube channel, including candidates in all local races. We also thank the Amherst Regional High School and their staff for making this space available for our forum tonight. And finally, I'd like to thank the members of the Amherst League who have worked very hard these last few weeks to make tonight's event a success. Amherst biennial election is November 4th. The last day to register to vote is October 24th by 5 p.m. We will have time for several questions from the audience, and at the end of the evening, each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. Some questions have been submitted in advance through the League's website, and we encourage you to write your own question on an index card and then hold it up, and one of our runners will pick it up. And I believe some people have already passed those in. But if anybody didn't get a chance to do that, just raise your hand and we'll get you a card. We always get, I should point out, and this is important, please address your questions to all the candidates so they're all answering that question. We always get more questions that can be answered in the time available. Our volunteers will be sorting the questions to reduce repetition. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We have 2 timekeepers in the front row, and they're sitting right here. They have 30-second and 15-second warning signs and a stop sign. Please finish your sentence quickly and stop speaking when you see the stop sign. Tonight we have 11 candidates from the 4 council districts with contested races. They are, for District 1, Jill Breivik, Freka Etta, Vincent O'Connor. Those are from District 1. District 2, Amber Cano Martin, Jason Dorney, and Lynn Griesemer. District 3, Patrick Drum, Heather Lord, and George Ryan. District 4, Dylan Maxfield, Jennifer Staub. Did I say that correctly? Kathy Shane from District 1 and Pam Rooney from District 4 are unable to join us tonight, but we will read their closing statements at the end. Voters may vote for 2 candidates in their own district. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already and put them away, and please hold your applause until the end of the closing statements. This time belongs to the candidates, so let's listen to what they have to say. Let's begin. The first question is, what prior experience has prepared you for the town council role? And we're going to start with District 3 and Patrick Drum.
All right. Thank you. As far as my experience for town council, my career is a project manager. I've done that for the last decade plus years. As far as how that relates to town council, a lot of my role is collaborating with people that I don't have any power over. I don't control them, they don't report to me, but it's all about collaboration, making compromises, and just trying to get the task done at hand. It may not necessarily benefit me for the, with the compromises that are made, but I'm still gonna make them for the betterment of the town in this case, instead of a project. That's my experience. And I will give the rest of my time to my colleagues here.
Okay, thank you. Heather Lord?
Thank you. Life has prepared me for this in different ways, working at nonprofits, learning about fundraising and budgeting, serving on the school committee, actually being in the school system for 10 years as a worker and having grown up in Amherst and gone through as a child and then been a parent, I think all these help inform me of how we walk through this life in Amherst differently, together sometimes, apart sometimes. And then I've had the honor of being on the council for 2 years. It was a learning curve, I'm not going to lie. But I think I know that I've learned a lot. And after the first year, I was like, I get so much of what's going on now, so much deeper. And I'm really excited to take those 2 years and turn them into more, because I have a foundational knowledge having walked through it. And I know you can get it, Patrick, I know you have experience, so I'm not, no shade at all. I'm just saying, for me personally, living it has helped me. And then I can apply the other stuff. So, anybody who hasn't been on it, I'm excited about being on it as well, because somebody gave me that opportunity last time. 30 seconds, 15 seconds. And I just think the biggest thing that has prepared me is my life as a human being, a therapist, an artist, an activist. I will meet you with love and in a healing way. Let's talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. George Ryan?
Thank you. When I think back, my experience has really been based in public service that I've been doing for over 20 years. When I first came to this community almost 30 plus years, more than 35 years ago, I became involved with Habitat for Humanity and worked with that group for over 20 years. The last 10 years or so, I was on the board. Eventually, I was the chairman of the board. So, experience there was remarkable. We used to joke that we basically ran an all-volunteer construction company, and it was quite a fun job, but it was all volunteer. After that, I've done lots of things, but I was on, I served on the on town meeting for 11 years, and then when we had the change of form of government, I ran for office, and I was elected to the council for a 3-year term. So I've served now in the council for 5 years. I'm currently vice president of the council. I've chaired at least 2 committees, one briefly, the Town Services, and also GOL, which is a more government organization legislation committee. So I've had a lot of just practical experience. I think probably the biggest preparation for me is my 40 years of teaching, being in the classroom, working with students, listening, helping them understand, and learning from them as much as hopefully they learned a little from me.
Okay, thank you. So that was District 3, and we're going to move to District 1. So Jillian Brevik?
Yeah, so I like to think about my experience as I would be a first-time counselor in 2 ways. One is thinking about strategy, and one thinking about culture. So on the strategic side and the more technical side, I've been in the nonprofit sector for about 15 years, a little over 15 years. And I have done a lot of work with small organizations who've had to do a lot with a little. I've worked primarily in revenue generation and fundraising and grant writing, adjacent to financial management. I've done project management. I've worked with organizations through pretty big changes and have replicated programs from the ground up in new geographic regions. So I have a lot of the technical skills that I think would apply well to any council, but especially here at this time when we're going into what will probably be a difficult budget year. Having that experience, I think, will be really useful. And then the other side of my life as a community organizer and activist, I think the biggest thing that would set me up for success is the knowledge that using our voice and not staying silent and fighting for what we really care about is the most important thing we can do right now. And I'm not afraid to fight. I'm not afraid to speak up for my constituents and for those in my community who are the most marginalized. Thank you.
You're going to have to stop. Thank you. All right, moving on to Freka Etta?
Freka.
Freka.
Yes.
Okay. That works for me.
So the question is, what prior experience has prepared me for this role? I am already a town councillor, so I think prior experience has been covered. But before I came on council, I didn't have that experience. The most important experience one has to get on the council is to be a citizen. A citizen belongs to a community. A citizen understands what the needs of the community are and tries to represent the views of the community on the council. And so I think being a citizen is the most important experience that I have. But in addition to that, I also was a political science professor. So in terms of the theoretical side, I think I also have that covered. And currently I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that has enabled me to see is the importance of getting different people together to work on issues that may come before the council.
Thank you. Vincent O'Connor?
I have a lot of experience in working with groups of people trying to accomplish important public concerns. It began when I was in college at the University of San Francisco, where I was a member of the Catholic Interracial Council in the early 60s. The NAACP chapter in San Francisco, the chapter of CORE, the Congress on Racial Equality in San Francisco, and ultimately the sole representative of my school, the University of San Francisco, to the Northern California Friends of SNCC. I was one of the people from my college who went to Selma in March of 1965. I organized that trip. I then spent 2 years working for SNCC in Arkansas, the Arkansas SNCC Project, until 1967. I then worked with anti-war activities. In Amherst, where I've been for 50 years, I have worked on 7 town committees. I actually worked with George Ryan on the Habitat for Humanity Site Selection Committee twice. Worked on 6 of the first 7 Habitat projects and have done a lot of work for North Amherst.
Thank you. All right, moving on to District 2. Amber Cano Martin?
Okay. How's that? Good? Okay. Hi, everybody, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and everyone for coming. So some of my qualifications, I think I would go all the way back to one of my earliest experiences as a young adult and living and working in Central America, which totally changed my perspective on the world. I learned Spanish, I learned a different culture, and I came back really clear about the work that I wanted to do in the US. And that led me almost immediately to a master's degree in international education right here in UMass, and also to a job with 1199 SEIU, organizing personal care attendants, who are some of the lowest paid and hardest working workers that we have in the state of Massachusetts. I also, in the course of that experience, did a lot of political action work, and we organized our union members to support ballot initiatives like the Fair Share Amendment, like earned sick leave, like the $15 minimum wage, right? We have that thanks to the working people of Massachusetts. So I understand that political change is not about one person. It's about people coming together to collectively take action and make a difference. And I think that my strength is that I am able to talk to people. I can talk to them in English. I can talk to them in Spanish. Many people have seen me already at their doors. You'll probably see me again. And having a local democracy that works is about involving people and about coming together and acting collectively. So that is what I bring to the table.
Thank you. Jason Dorney?
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this and all the candidates for participating. Like Patrick said, I am a project manager for a civil engineering firm, worked with various different stakeholders to move projects forward, have a lot of experience with budgeting, and trying to do what's best for not only the project, but in this case, as Patrick mentioned again, do what's best for the town, for everybody in the town. Aside from that, I also am a citizen. I'm a father. I have children in the schools. I also serve on the Conservation Commission currently in Amherst, and am highly vested in the success of the town in many different aspects. I hope to help to create a good town, a better town for our children and our children's children. And overall, I really enjoy learning, and I love talking to people, so hearing everybody's story and trying to see how we as potential counselors can help people and help to make the town a great town for everybody. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Griesemer?
Again, thanks to the league and to all of you who've taken your night out to watch us. I started my career at 21 teaching in Appalachia, where I had students literally who lived in converted chicken coops. Back then, we didn't know what special ed was, and we didn't know what child abuse was, but we learned. Over time, I got, in addition to my undergraduate degree, picked up a couple of graduate degrees, including one in public policy at the Kennedy School of Government. So what I then did was run a nonprofit for a couple of years, and in fact started that nonprofit that served education K-12 for the 6 states of New England and New York. And in that case, I reported to a very interesting board of commissioners of education who were pretty demanding. Ultimately, I became executive director of the UMass Donahue Institute and associate vice president for economic development at the University of Massachusetts, where I was for 32 years. What I bring to this is a depth of experience that includes everything from grant writing to budgeting to audits to public policy, and most importantly, the ability to listen and try to figure out a path on how to move things forward, as I believe we have done.
Thank you. Moving to District 4, Dylan Maxfield.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Maxfield. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on, and thank you all for coming. So a little bit about my qualifications. I have certainly some of the technical expertise. I've served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for Amherst for about 3 years. I served on the Board of Licensing for about 5 years. We did liquor licensing, permitting, food trucks, that sort of thing. And now professionally, I work as a city planner for a local municipality where I specialize in land use and zoning. So I definitely bring some technical experience, but I think what really makes me qualified for this is I'm a renter here in town. As we see home prices continue to climb and rents continue to go up at the same pace, we're seeing that it's very unsustainable for people to continue living here. We're seeing single-family neighborhoods turn into college rentals, and those college rentals are incredibly expensive for the students who want to live there, and it's starting to push out the local population of folks like myself who would like to become homeowners in town, who would like to live here long-term, but it's become incredibly difficult to do so. So I'm somebody who has not only the knowledge of how to address these problems, but I'm somebody who actually has the perspective and the incentive to address these problems, and that's why I'm running, and that's why I believe I am qualified to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Taub?
Okay, thank you. And echoing my fellow candidates, I thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us and all of you for being here tonight. The experience I bring are 4 years on the town council and 3 years as chair of the local historic district commission and serving on town meeting before that. So I moved to Amherst in 2011 and jumped right into town affairs and have never looked back, and it's really been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I began my career as a community organizer and project manager for neighborhood housing services, and that was a nationwide program of, it's now NeighborWorks, of community-based organizations that initially began to combat insurance industry and financial institution redlining. And what made those programs special is the board of directors of the nonprofits, which were the neighborhood housing services, had a majority of residents. So I've always worked in empowering neighborhood residents to have a voice in their community. And I feel the strengths that I bring are I'm very strong at consensus building. I love working with people. And the part of being a counselor I like the most is constituent services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to point out that I have a grid so that I have the numbers changed with each question. So if you find yourself answering it at a different time than you expected to, it's because of the grid. The second question is, do you believe our schools are currently adequately, and adequately is in quotes, funded, or if not, where do you see additional funding coming from? And this time, we're going to start with Jason Dorney.
Thank you. No, I don't think our schools are adequately funded. Our schools have been cutting programs, cutting teachers, cutting paras over several years. I think it's a constant issue. Every year there's budget fights. I think that we, aside from the rising costs, we also are losing students to charter schools, and that takes some of the state funding away. So the whole funding mechanism from the state, I think, is a big issue. But regarding the source of funding, one of the biggest issues in town, and one of the biggest issues I'm running on, is that we need to increase our tax base. We need to bring more revenue into town. There's only 3 ways the town can make revenue, and that's taxes, state grants, and federal grants. And the state grants and the federal grants are not going to be coming in, certainly for the next 4 years. So we need to do something to bring more taxpayers into town, because the bulk of our budget is from taxes. And hopefully build more housing for all different kinds of people, including families, to get more children into our schools, and to have more property taxes so that we can adequately fund our schools. It's the biggest part of our budget, and I think it deserves to be the biggest part of our budget. The schools and our children are the future, and good schools make good towns, and good towns have good schools.
Thank you. Amber Cano Martin?
Yes, school funding is one of my biggest priorities in my campaign. I'm obviously personally invested because my 2 children, who are sitting back there, are in the Amherst Public Schools. I don't think that they're adequately funded. As folks may know, in the past 2 years, we have had really severe budget cuts that would have been a lot worse had the community not really come together and taken action to protect some of the programs, such as world languages, music, and special education, just to name a few. And still, we had nearly $1 million of cuts. And so we have to start from the premise that that's not acceptable, that we want a fully funded school district, and that our school committee and our educators know what the schools need. So we need to respect the budgets that they pass. Secondly, I do think that there is enough money in the town budget to bridge a gap of less than $1 million, but it does require people on the council who are willing to prioritize education and to look at where that money can come from and really take a deep dive into the budget. Just to give you all an example, I recently found out that JCPC budgeted nearly $2 million for new police radios over the past 2 years. Already having functional police radios. So that alone could have fixed our school budget problem. So our problem, we need to look at state funding as well, state funding formulas, and we also need to look at UMass and Amherst College to augment the funding that we can get from other places. So I'm not saying only look at the town, but I am saying that we need to have our priorities straight.
Thank you. Okay, moving to District 4, Jennifer Taub.
Thank you. I agree with what has been said. I think that one of the most, aside from basic services, maintaining infrastructure, that supporting our schools is the #1, priority for the town council. I think that's why families have moved to Amherst for decades for our excellent K through 12 schools. Since I've lived in Amherst, we have built hundreds of new large apartment complexes and added, thousands of beds to our housing inventory, but that has not allowed us and enabled us to provide the funding that we need for our schools. So I don't think that alone is the answer, and I think that as we have built these large apartment complexes, which are, largely, they have been designed and priced for students, we've seen our non-student population and certainly our community of families decline. And we need a robust student K through 12 population to continue to be able to offer enrichment courses and all the services and the educational opportunities for our students. I don't see a path forward for Amherst in meeting our school budget needs without increased payments in lieu of taxes from the University of Massachusetts and Amherst College. So I think that needs to be a priority in the next council.
Thank you. Dylan Maxfield?
Yeah, so I mean, I also agree with what's been said before. I think education is the most important line item on any municipal budget. It's why it's over 50% of the budget, and we do need to keep funding those schools. The costs are going to keep going up, and the question is, how are we going to fund them? And I do want to see us continue to grow our tax base. I know the large-scale buildings we have built have been a major contributor in needing to make it so we don't have to do overrides, which I think we're all worried about that conversation coming, but we have to keep funding the schools, and we need to keep getting families in here. I believe that we have the housing available for families that they would like to live here. Again, the issue, it's just unattainable, it's unaffordable for folks to actually come into town, which is making it difficult. So I would like to see us develop more housing in town that would be attractive, again, to students as a way to generate more tax revenue for the town so we could actually fund our schools the way we would like to and attract the families here that want to live in Amherst but simply can't afford to do so.
Thank you. Moving on to District 3, Heather Lord.
Thank you. First and foremost, the way this nation funds schools is awful, racist, and classist. I always think that the national security that we need to invest in is our children. They need enrichment, they need great education, they need access to foster their curiosity so that they can, live in such an amazing way. And New Mexico just started a universal preschool, and I know this isn't quite about the schools, but it is, because when Massachusetts can do that, then kids funneling into kindergarten will have a different set of needs and less needs. Okay, so no, our schools are not funded well. When I went here, we had automotive, we had home ec, we had childcare, and I swear that some of these enrichment things saved me from a traumatized childhood where I would have ended up imprisoned or addicted. The statistics just say that. But because Amherst had such a rich school system, I was able to find a piece of myself here and become the person that I am now and will continue to grow into. So, how do we fund these schools? The Chapter 70, I know we got a little more. We need more. Charter schools, less. Maybe public health, like, okay, where else can we get money? For some of the mental health needs, for some of the special ed needs, there's other ways that we can think outside the box. An alumni chapter. We have Academy Award winners, Emmy Award winners. Let's have a rich alumni that can fund money. So I just want us to start thinking outside the box about different ways to fund our schools, because our children are the most important, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. George Ryan.
So I guess I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective. I'm a 40-year educator. I've spent my entire life in a classroom. Education is something that I obviously deeply value. But I also sit on the town council where we have to balance the needs of the town as a whole against the needs of the schools, which are very real. And so I guess I'm a little bit less, I'm not sure what the right word is, but I see the challenges, and I'm struggling to see ways to go forward. There's a history here, too, that often it seems to have been lost in the discussion in terms of declining enrollments over the last 20 years, in terms of the use of certain one-time monies during COVID. There's something going on here we need to look more closely at. But there's no question the schools are facing these challenges. The cost of SPED, the crazy charter formula. So I do think of practical things in ways that the town could help in terms of funding. I think it's correct that we have to try and grow our tax base. I don't think there's any salvation coming from outside sources, at least in the short term. So one thing I think about is a revolving fund. Every year you have SPED, you have issues with SPED where people come in, families come in and they have SPED needs, and that can blow a budget right out the window. So the town could set aside a fund, perhaps funded through free cash, but at least that money would always be there and your budget would be at least protected from that. I'd also be open to looking at the 3.5% that we offer to each of the functional areas and see if there's a way we could work with that.
Thank you. Patrick Drum.
I also agree with everyone up here in saying that I don't believe that the schools are adequately funded. I have 2 kids at Crocker Farm, and my wife has been a public school teacher for about 13 years. So I very much am invested in the educational funding formula. At the state level, I'll echo what everyone has said. I don't anticipate that's going to solve the issue in the short term. However, in the immediate term, I mean, growing the tax base is a nice solution. And like George has said, looking at shifting some of the budgets towards the schools would be ideal. I believe Amherst has fallen below the state average in educational funding. And while enrollment is historically down, anecdotally, I believe it's going back up. There's been a number of families moving to Amherst in the last 10 to 12 months because of the national politics. And, you know, yeah, there are still a lot of student homes, but those student homes have started going to out-of-state families looking to escape the national politics. So I believe we need to put more funding into the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. So just District 1, Freka?
So the schools are not adequately funded, but in this town, there are a lot of things that are also not adequately funded. The role of a town councillor is to consider all the different things that the town has to pay for and find a way to prioritize them. So there are different ways we could increase the amount of money that we have, and some of those have already been discussed. So increasing the tax base through housing and development would be one way. I think we should speak to the higher ed institutions, but they aren't saviors, and they also have their own interests that they have to consider. I think part of the role of the council is to find a way to have a dialogue with those schools, but also think beyond just getting pilots, but also with the different schools that we have, what are the businesses that come out of UMass and Amherst College that could be in this town and could be a way to increase funding?
Thank you. Jillian Brevik?
Yeah, so absolutely agree with other folks who've spoken that our schools are not adequately funded, and that was one of the key issues that motivated me to run for council. I have 2 children in the public schools in the Caminantes program at Fort River Elementary, and I think being involved in, you know, as a resident and as a parent, being involved in advocating for the increases to the school budget, I think what really struck me is that it was not treated, in my opinion, with the level of urgency that it required. And I think with everybody up here saying that we don't believe the schools are adequately funded, I don't feel like in between campaign cycles I felt that urgency, that creativity, the ideas coming forth, and people really working hard, save a few folks who absolutely have, and were great advocates. But on the whole, I think as parents, there was a feeling of being let down. And a feeling that, you know, and I think that there are a lot of solutions. While no one on its own might be the savior, I think what we wanted to see as parents were our counselors, our representatives pursuing anything they could to make this happen. And so that including pushing for pilots. And as someone who's not affiliated with UMass and could help to have objective conversations, I think that's one avenue. I am currently advocating on the state level to increase funding and change the funding formulas.
Thank you. You're going to have to stop. Vincent O'Connor?
I'm the oldest of 8 children. At 12 years old, I began taking care of other people's children, my parents. My mother's 4th cesarean section, her 9th pregnancy. And I was the oldest kid and she only had one girl. And that girl and another brother had RH factor disability deficits. So I have a lot of strong feelings about people who think we ought to underfund, join Northampton in underfunding special ed. In town meeting, I supported school issues long before I became the support person and transportation person for 4 students from 2005 to 2014 in the regional schools. 4 kids who were a boy and a girl from each family who were children of African immigrants. And I have continued that process. I am involved in the lives of 2 kids who are, one in elementary school and one in school. I think that we have to do something different than building more housing. We need to get the university to pay taxes on its new dorm across from Whitmore and to do other creative things.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the third question. If elected, what actions would you take to make roads in Amherst safer for drivers and more accessible? Pardon? Who didn't get a chance to? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, my mistake, and you, please go ahead and answer.
There's no question that the issue of funding our schools has become so contentious. It's the reason last year, as we moved into the budget, the council finally had the courage to turn around to the other 3 towns and say, we need you to pay your full share. For Pelham, that was 21.5% increase. For Amherst, it allowed us to come in at 4.9. At the elementary school level, as we got closer and closer to the budget, it was during one of our council meetings, probably as early as March, that I said, let's fund it at 4 plus another 1% from reserves or whatever other funds. I'm always trying to look for a way to fund our schools. And in doing so, what I have done for the last 7 years is regularly testify about the school formula, about pilot programs, about charter schools, etc. As recently as the other day, I had an opportunity to be in the room with the governor, and she is forming a commission to look at pilots. But you know what? They're not looking at the kind of pilots that we are, where people come to our land and a lot of things are built on it. And so as much as we can look locally for the funds, we cannot give up going to the state to say, you need to fund us and you don't need to be, and you need to fund the charter schools, so we aren't.
You need to stop. Thank you. And my apologies again.
That's no problem.
I think I crossed your number off and forgot to actually call on you. So thank you for the audience participation to remind me that I skipped her. Going back to question number 3, I'll repeat it again. If elected, what actions would you take to make roads in Amherst safer for drivers and more accessible for pedestrians, bicyclists, and those with limited mobility? And this time, we're starting with District 4 and Jennifer Taub.
Thank you. Well, I've been a member this council term of the Town Services and Outreach Committee, and we've actually spent, quite a bit of time addressing safer roads in Amherst. So I voted for and supported to have school zones and so that drivers would, for an extended period of hours through the day, drive slower. We voted to lower the speed limit on major roads in town and also to advocate for speed limits by the preschool on Henry Street. So that has been a priority. I also think we make roads safer by maintaining them and paving the roads, and I may be getting to a different answering a different question, but I think Amherst needs to be creative. As I go door to door, I hear concerns about roads and sidewalks almost more than anything else, and I think we should look to forming a consortium of other smaller towns in our area so that we can bid together and more competitively for road paving services and be able to attract those large companies to the western part of the state, which we've been challenged to do. As an avid biker, I support bike lanes and safe access to biking wherever possible.
Thank you. Dylan Maxfield?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of road funding, which is always the challenge, it's growing the tax base, as I'm sure you're going to hear us all say a lot tonight. And we're hoping that the state will be reviewing the Chapter 90 funding of how they actually distribute money for roads to the state. So hopefully we can get a little bit there. But I want to see, as we kind of go forward with redeveloping our roads, I'd like to see us do it in a way that is much more geared towards bicycles, towards pedestrians as well. Reducing speed limits, narrowing lanes to one, that would help reduce the type of heavy use you might see on our roads, and then two, make us a little bit more of a walkable town. I know as I've been canvassing door to door, I've had several times where I've almost sprained my ankle and said, well, I guess I'm going to be out of the race based on this pothole on the sidewalks. So I think sidewalks are also going to need to be a priority on this as well. So it's going to be, just a matter of trying to see where can we actually grow the tax base, and then how can we allocate the resources to actually address the roads, because if my numbers are correct, I think we put around $500,000 of our own money from the tax levy last year into roads. We got another $1.5 million from the state. And I think our city engineer says we need to be spending $5 million a year on roads if we want to get ahead of it. So it's a challenge that we're up against here, but I'm definitely somebody who's willing to step up and see if we can find solutions to get more money into the roads.
Thank you. George Ryan?
So like Jennifer, I've been serving on the Town Services and Outreach Committee, and we have dealt with a whole host of matters. Jennifer's given you a pretty good sense of the kinds of things that we've been trying to do. One thing that I've been particularly drawn to is this notion of safe routes to schools, trying to create a network of sidewalks that are actually in proper condition and that kids can use to get to schools. And so I hope that that's something that we can work on. On TSO right now, we're in the process of creating a Transportation and Parking Commission. It's on the model of what exists in Northampton. Right now, if you have an issue related to this sort of thing, who do you go to? Do you go to Paul? Do you go to DPW? Do you go to your council representative? We're really not, it's not a one-stop kind of system. So we're going to create this Transportation and Parking Commission. You'll be able to come with the issues related to pedestrian safety, bike safety, the kinds of things that I think are basic quality of life. And the hope is that this body will streamline that and make it more responsive and active. But particularly for me, this whole notion of making it a walkable, bikeable community, particularly connecting schools to neighborhoods, is something that I want to work on if I go back to the council for 2 more years.
Thank you. Heather Lord?
Thank you. What I didn't understand was that they didn't change the Chapter 90 formula for since 2012 or something like that.
Right.
So we got into about a $20 or $30 million deficit. I'm sorry, my internet won't work. But we got into this deep hole. So yes, they bumped it up a little, but it's a drop in the bucket for what we need for our infrastructure. So how do we come up with that money? What are we going to do? Good questions. We need to do it. Equity is such an issue, and if our mobility impaired or our disabled, differently abled people can't walk safely, if we can't walk safely and they can't walk safely, what are we doing? What are we doing this for? So I was also on TSO, or still am, for 2 years, so I did learn a lot about the infrastructure and culverts and everything I might want to never know about. But
No.
pardon me. But it is a real crisis situation. So one idea like the PVTA, maybe on the bus routes, and this wasn't mine, this was brought to us by a public comment, can they help fund the roads that they travel on? So that would take care of a great deal of those potholes, because they go on Heatherstone, they go on, well, Pomeroy's done now, it looks beautiful, I don't know if you've been there, but, so we have to, again, think out of the box, because budget's not gonna be pretty, and what are the ways? UMass, PVTA, a lot of your students help us, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to District 1, Jillian Brevitt?
Excuse me, we have one more in District 3.
Wait a minute. Did I skip you again?
No.
Patrick.
Patrick. District 3. I thought Patrick went.
Don't leave my man Patrick
Not
out.
yet.
No, you didn't.
Nice,
You know, this grid is complicated.
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay, but you know what, Patrick? I'm going to let you go next.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah, so to kind of mirror some of the conversations as far as making the roads safer, I appreciate the lowered speed limit sign. So I live on West Pomeroy. Our speed limit went from 30 to 25. hasn't stopped people from going 80 on the road, but I appreciate the lower speed limits. Same with the school zone in front of Crocker Farm. Again, doesn't stop anyone from going 40 during school hours, but I appreciate that it has the flashing lights. I would love to see more enforcement. We do get a lot of cut through, especially through, we have West Pomeroy and then Mill Valley Lane to get to Hadley. They're basically just straightaway racetracks at this point. So I would love to see some additional enforcement around the speed limits. And then as far as making the sidewalks safer, especially during winter, I know that our DPW is very busy, but helping especially our senior and disabled residents in town clearing the sidewalks, especially the fire hydrants, would be fantastic. I know I only have a few seconds left, but a quick anecdote. We had a fire in the neighborhood behind me. The fire hydrant was iced over, and the resident in that house is disabled. They could not get out to physically clear the fire hydrant, and as a result, their house burned down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving to Jillian.
Yeah, so to me, I see the roads as sort of a symptom of a deeper issue. I do think it's something that we should be able to expect, safe roads and sidewalks and accessibility for our residents. So I will, if elected, treat it that way. It's not too much to ask that our kids can bike safely to their neighbors' houses. And I certainly have plenty of anecdotes of, near accidents my kids have gotten into. And I think some simple solutions like speed bumps and stop signs in strategic places make sense. But also I think that we spend a lot on consultants and studies and time and committees and commissions, and I think then we end up with rotaries that don't have accessible pedestrian signals. And I don't know, again, referring to it as a symptom of something. There's something going on when we're doing all of this work, but we're not seeing any outcome. So it's just one of those areas that I would really like to look into more deeply. I think I've heard as I've been canvassing, a lot of creative solutions from people who are really frustrated. For example, looking into excise taxes and how we can access excise taxes of the students who are driving on our roads through most of the year, but paying their excise taxes to their hometown. Those are funds that are supposed to go to road upkeep. So definitely would want to look into some creative solutions, but really wonder why we're in the situation that we're in.
Thank you. Vincent O'Connor?
Yeah, so I was the chair of the Committee on Bicycling from 1988 to 94, and was there when we got the rail trail started. And I've been a bicyclist for a long time, not as much recently as I was, but in 2003 to 2009, I was a member of the Public Works Committee of the town, a committee that was established by an individual who lives in the district. And quite frankly, I think that one of the problems we're having with our public works situation is we do not have a committee that can both, a public works committee of the council with 3 members and 2 outside citizens who can take a look at all the proposals that the town staff has, hold public hearings across the town, east, west, and south, and north, and get real public input into what is going on and what should be going on, and make recommendations to the council that are better informed than the ones we get. So I think there are ways to address a lot of these issues, especially dealing with these grant applications that the department puts in, and then we end up with a grant that we really don't feel comfortable with, but.
Thank you. Freka?
So when it comes to safety for roads, we can work on traffic calming, we can have signs, and also we can have enforcement. Those are things that are being done. They could be done better. I think something else that could be done is making it clearer on the town website where to go and who to go to if you have an issue with the roads or with the sidewalks. And clearly, safer roads would require that we spend on our roads and we fix them and we fix our sidewalks. And that is something that I have already been advocating for on the council. I think something else that we could do is renew the focus to have denser development. What that would do is reduce the number of cars on the streets. It would keep students in places where using buses, they'll be able to go to campus or where they want to go to, or in my own case, walk the streets. Walk the streets. Keep walking and keep walking.
Thank you. Moving to District 2, Lynn Griesemer?
One of the most embarrassing things about the council at this point is the condition of our roads, our sidewalks, and our lack of bicycle paths. It is why we placed a priority in the town manager's goals to come forward with a plan. But that plan is not simple, because when we tear up a road, we also have to look at the sewer and the water underneath the road. All of you that live on Amity Street or try to go down at any time recently, you know what I'm talking about. So as we look at this, it is a complex problem. It involves our enterprise funds, it involves getting more state money, and it involves, as was mentioned earlier, collaborating with our other towns so that we have enough of a demand in Western Mass so that the 2 or 3 providers of paving in Western Mass actually are incentivized to increase their staff and their equipment, and or we can bring some of the other ones in from Eastern Mass. And the only way to do that is to increase demand. And the way to do that is to combine with other communities and make that demand known so that we actually can get the attention we need. And when we do put in a road, we need to put in bike lanes, we need to make sure we put in sidewalks, and we need to make sure that we avoid disasters like Heatherstone Road, which is in my district and one of the worst pains I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Amber Cano Martin?
Lynn, I can testify that your constituents are very upset about Heatherstone Road. Yeah, so I mean, I'm interested to know, excuse me, what the process was that led to the roundabouts. But, you know, certainly we can avoid that process by doing, you know, studies and neighborhood surveys, perhaps more ahead of time before we put those in. I think, you know, as someone with children who is constantly worried about their safety as well, even in my residential neighborhood, people will drive faster than 30 miles an hour, regardless of how many signs we've put. I really would very much like to know why we can't put in speed bumps. Our town has been asking for such a long time, and our neighborhood has been asking, and we got the digital sign, which tells you your speed instead of a speed bump, and then they took it away. And I think that the signs, I read somewhere in the budget, they cost $60K. So does a speed bump cost $60K? I'm just curious, because I would really like to know, and I will dedicate myself to studying this. For bike lanes, we need them on the arterial streets especially. I've spoken to many constituents who would like to bike to UMass or to other places and are fearing for their lives. Sidewalks, I think East Pleasant Street and Pelham Road in my district are priorities because they are routes to walking to school. So with the small amounts of money we have, that's what I would prioritize. And one last thing is, looking for money, is there a way that routes 9 and 116 could be maintained by the state again instead of the town?
That'd be good.
And then we can get some more money back.
Thank you. And Jason Dorney?
Yeah, this is a great question for today, because today was Bike to School Day.
Yes.
And in our neighborhood, Echo Hill, where on Heatherstone, where the roundabouts are, we had to have a police escort to get us out onto Pelham Road and Main Street with a police officer on a bike in the front and one on a cruiser in the back. And it was still harrowing because people still pulled out, even though there was huge groups of kids riding their bikes. And on the way back, we did not have that police escort. We tried to stay on the sidewalk, but that sidewalk is almost non-existent. And anything past Southeast Street is terrible. And so I would advocate for more bike lanes, more traffic calming measures, things like speed bumps or speed tables, some better thought out traffic calming measures than the roundabouts on Heatherstone. And if you're going to replace the roundabouts, do something else. Don't just say, well, there's nothing else we can do. We really should be building closer to, as Freke mentioned, density in these areas where people can walk and people can bike and use public transportation. We have a master plan that called for multimodal transportation. We need to actually do that and do the things that are in the plans that we've already paid for and help people get around far easier than it is now, and not just in the downtown area.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to question 4. And the question is, how should the town continue to work on racial justice issues? Please name some specific issues that concern you. And this time we're going to start with Vincent O'Connor.
Well, I think the first thing is that there have been a number of proposals made in the past, brought before the council, that the council has said should be enacted, and there seems to be a lack of enthusiasm in the City Hall to implement what the council decided should be done. And one of the things, the suggestions I make, is get some new people on the council, a new structure of organization for the council to make sure that what the council has agreed to gets done by the management. I mean, this is simply a lack of management enthusiasm for things that they do not see as priorities. And the failure of the management team in the town hall to execute the proposals that were agreed to as a result of the George Floyd studies is really a real deficit for this town. The schools are making an effort, and I think the town has not made the effort, and it's showing. It's just everything that was asked for is not being done. There seems to be no enthusiasm at the management level to implement those programs.
Thank you. Freke?
The town has made some progress, and I will be one of those that will admit it. We worked over the last session to get the reparations charge done. That's something we've done. We have a DEI department that needs to be supported. We also have CRES that needs to be supported as well. Something that could help with racial integration in this town is if we can have different kinds of buildings and housing so that different people from economic groups and racial groups can come to this town. It's an expensive town, and so it ends up being that only some particular kind of people come here. That's something we should keep in mind. I think something else that we can do in this town, and this doesn't have to be the town council, is go out and meet people. We do not meet people in this town. And one of the people or groups of people we could meet are students. Students are heavily diverse, but we seem to have found a way to push them out of being integrated in this town. Something to think about.
Thank you. All right, moving on to District 2. Okay. And she's right beside me, too.
Right here.
Okay. Jillian, it's your turn. Thank you.
So when I think about social and racial justice, I think about it as woven into all of the other areas of my platform, and will lead with a social justice lens into every area. And also I think of it in Amherst, but also in a larger sense, which it's really, I believe that addressing systemic issues at the national and international levels, the state level, is critical. because we don't live in a bubble and we feel the impact. As they say, the boomerang comes back. So what we say is okay nationally, we feel here. And so standing up against oppression and the fascism and things that we're seeing on the national level is really important to me. Locally, I think as a good example, I think about CRESS, and I think about my experience in program evaluation and the fact that underutilization of a program doesn't mean that the need is all of a sudden gone. So in this sort of a case, like, we determined there was a need, we need to stand by that, and we need to evaluate why it's not working and invest in this case, I believe we should invest more so that we can see it come to fruition in the way that it was intended. I think if a program doesn't have an opportunity to try and fail and try new things and guess and test, then it doesn't have a high likelihood of success. So I would
Thank
support
you.
its continued success.
Amber Cano Martin.
Excuse me. Yes, I do share what Jill expressed about racial justice is a thread that goes through everything else that I think that we do as a town and as a town council. And so one of the ways that we can do that is applying a racial justice lens thoroughly and consistently to all town projects, programs, and policies. I think the DEI department is a great resource for that. My understanding is that they do not currently have a training for the town council, but I think that's something that we should implement and that it should be mandatory, and that the trainings for town staff are voluntary, but I think that they should be mandatory as well, so that every department is applying that lens. I think that we do need CRESS to be fully funded and functional, the unarmed responders. They recently had 2 positions frozen, so we need to restore those positions, and also to get them working 24/7. Because most of the calls that come in are between 4 p.m. and midnight, and that's not a time that they're open. So I also think that we need to work with the firefighters and the police to make sure that CRESS is getting dispatch calls so that they can respond to the things that they can help with. And that is a systemic issue that I think as a council we can help facilitate that working better. I also think that another thing is the Resident Oversight Board, in line with the Community Safety Working Group recommendations, is long overdue, and that was one of the earliest recommendations. And I think we want to make sure that's in line with what the CSWG said, because some of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Jason Dorney.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said here, and I think that, as Jill mentioned, CRESS, just because it's underutilized doesn't mean that it's not necessary, and we should continue to fund and support CRESS. I think we ought to fund the reparations fund. I think we should try to fund it fully right now, as opposed to waiting year after year putting money in. I would like to see Amherst College step up as a direct beneficiary of enslavement to fund that fully. I have my doubts that that will happen, but it would be a good thing for us to try to put pressure on them for. I think it starts in the schools as well. I think some of our schools are doing a good job of just teaching our children. Like everybody here said, I think racism is a taught ideology, if you will. And so I think our schools are doing great jobs, and it starts there with kids. But housing, as Freke mentioned, is a big component. There's a lot of inequity in housing, and we need to address that by having diverse housing types that are not just market rate housing, market rate apartments, that are more dense, that offer home ownership paths like the project on Ball Lane, that can help all kinds of groups of people become homeowners, or at the very least have secure housing and not have that constant stress that just builds and builds in everyday life.
Thank you. Lynn Riesemer?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the League for the recent report that's going to be discussed tomorrow night at the Judy Brooks conversation. It actually looks at the town's efforts regarding racial justice and diversity. And I want to thank the authors for doing that and for the League for sponsoring that. The town has done some things, but never enough. Absolutely not. On November 3rd, the council will have a joint meeting with the CSSJC, at which point we will look over the 7 things that we adopted as part of our resolution back in 2022. And then we will also, that same night, receive the recommendations. In fact, there's two options for the for the Oversight Board. These things take a while. I want to also compliment our DEI department. We're one of the few last standing. And I want to compliment them on the efforts they have made and their efforts to go forward and find additional monies to continue the conversations that they have been with the community. We'll pass a resolution on Monday night that actually supports a grant that they're applying for to actually continue that work as well. So I think that it's a work in progress. It's always going to be a work in progress. We've made some efforts, but we're not done.
Thank you. Moving to District 4, Dylan Maxfield.
Yeah, so I'd like to first echo some of what folks have said about CRESS, where they're definitely not only a newer department, which just takes time to get off the ground, but a new idea for a governmental department. So I think they still need our support, especially given the national issues we're facing. I think we're definitely going to need to support CRESS and keep them along while they're still getting themselves established. You know, a big concern that I have right now in this moment is what are we going to be doing about ICE? Because this isn't a theoretical problem anymore of what happens when people come to our communities and start rounding people up off the street. It's happening now, and it's going to start happening. And I think we as a community really need to now start addressing how do we deal with this. When people in unmarked cars wearing masks show up to kidnap people off the street, do we just believe them when they say that they're federal officers? Or is this something that we would respond to with anyone else when they show up with masks and guns and unmarked cars and say, well, maybe who are you and what are you doing here? Might be a start of how we start to deal with this. Because, yeah, I think we're going into a very scary time right now, and I think we locally as a community have to be ready to deal with that.
Thank you. Jennifer Tubb?
Yes, thank you. I concur with what has been said about CRESS needing to be to be effective and to fulfill its mission. It does need to be a 24-hour operation. And I know, certainly in the district I live in, there's often calls, most of the calls that residents make are are in weekends and evenings. And so CRESS has to be able to be here. I know that's a funding challenge, but for it to be effective, we have to be committed to their availability beyond 4 p.m. on weekdays. I have also, since I've been on the council, every town manager report does say dispatch. The police department is in process of trying to, of looking at dispatch and trying to make that happen. And we need to, as a council, really make sure that that's just not something that's updated once a month, but that we're really moving towards realizing that end. I think that where we have made progress, again, we have a terrific DEI department, and I really enjoyed attending the sessions on becoming a beloved community, and I think the more that we can offer that to the community is a good thing. And I think funding our schools, fully funding our schools, is probably the best social equity and justice that we can bring to our community.
Okay, moving to District 3. George Ryan?
You know, when I think about the issue of social justice and in my own life experience, I think back to my years with Habitat for Humanity. And what drew me to that organization and what kept me engaged in it for over 20 years was the idea of building a house and a concrete thing that was created. So when I look at this issue, I think of things that we're doing as a community in a very concrete way. So reparations is the first. And so I look forward to the time when actual recommendations will be brought to us and the council will be voting on dispensing monies for actual actions that can lead to addressing issues of social justice. I think of what's happening in Ball Lane. It was mentioned earlier, I think it was Jason, but the construction project, 30 units of housing being built by Valley CDC, specifically targeted to those communities that have been historically kept out of the housing market. In other words, for people of color. I think of a third thing, which is right now reaching conclusion, which is the renovation and care of our track, a high school track. That is something that seems so small, but yet really important. And finally, with CREST, just a thought. I think the model, public health model, is something we should consider. It's very successful in Northampton, and I think it might address some of the concerns that people have been raising. So with CREST, I would hope that we could look at that model as well.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to Heather Lord.
Thank you. On Monday night, our council had a difficult meeting around whether to pass a resolution for George Floyd Day. Some were worried about being performative. Well, I'm glad it passed, but how do we not be performative? In my opinion, the town council made 2 missteps that caused racial harm since I've been on it. And one was passing a budget that froze 2 CREST positions. 3 of us voted no. Because not only did it freeze 2 CREST positions, but they lost a third to a grant, and the director had been asking for a couple years that it be incorporated into the budget. And then the second was to not fund the BBAAA, the black businesses, with any of the ARPA funds. Since I've been on this council, we've lost our 2 black-owned restaurants downtown, and that hurts my heart deeply. Okay, so how do we also not be performative? The CSSJC is supposed to be an advisor to us, so I'm glad they're coming November 3rd, but that's the 23rd month of our term. So how do we access that more as great? How do we help with our policies, our reparations? George and I have been going to ACLU meetings and the Office of Refugee and Immigrants to say, how do we protect our immigrants and how do we stand up against ICE? On the 29th at the UU, there will be a bystander training. I encourage all of you to come, and then there's even more trainings where we can learn to document and help protect all of us. Thank you.
Okay. Patrick Drum?
Thank you. So in addition to what's been said, and so looking at the reparations fund, right, I think it's $2 million over 10 years. So actually passing the resolution to start divvying out the funding would be ideal. In addition to that, you know, I really appreciate that the town has started a civic academy. I believe that that would bring a lot of equity to the community, getting more diverse folks involved. I'm looking at the folks up here, it's pretty monochrome. Sorry, Holly. But, you know, doing more multilingual outreach would be fantastic. And then also looking at just, getting more people involved in town government would be ideal. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to question number 5, which is what type of good government recommendations do you want to see in the charter review process?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What type of good government recommendations do you want to see in the charter review process?
Thank you.
So this time we're going to start with Jason Dorney.
Thank you. I think that one of the issues that I see that we have is, like I mentioned before, we seem to do a lot of studies and then nothing ever comes out of the studies. So first and foremost, I think if we're going to pay for a study, we ought to listen to experts. That's, I know it seems foreign now in this country, but experts are experts for a reason, and we should be listening to them, whether it be in housing, in planning, in zoning, in health, and all of those things. So I would like to see us incorporate the recommendations that come from the different committees and the different studies that we do. I think that would be one of the best things. As far as additional good government, I believe there's ways that we can be much more transparent in our budgeting. I think that is something that's incredibly important. I was involved, me and my family were involved with Amherst SOS last year, which is what really got me into wanting to run for town council. And it is incredibly confusing and at times seems like a lot of smoke and mirrors to avoid showing people the truth of what's being spent, where it's being spent, how it's being spent, why it's being spent. and why other things aren't being prioritized over anything else.
Okay, thank you. Lynn Griesemer?
Thank you. One of the things that I hope, first of all, let me just say that the Charter Commission, the Charter Review Committee, has come to the council, and just last week, we voted an extension. There were some people questioning whether they should get an extension. My feeling is that they have spent an enormous amount of time listening to the residents of our town, and we owe them that extension so that when they come back to the council, they have a full and complete report from what they've heard. And so they do have that extension. They will report back sometime on around January 5th, which is the beginning of the next council, which means the next council gets to deal with the recommendations, which is perfect, okay? It's a new, fresh set of eyes looking at the charter, et cetera. Some things can be done by the council in terms of changing the charter. Some things have to be voted on by the public, which also might require a new charter commission, and some things actually have to go to the legislature. One of the other things, though, I think we're going to see is some serious suggestions about how we can improve and add to citizen participation. For example, we've had a great experience with non-resident members on our finance committee. Why not have non-resident members on our other committees as well? It's a perfect place to bring in expertise that could advise us in any number of ways that we actually just don't have all that expertise on the council. So I'm looking forward to the recommendations of this committee. Thank you.
Okay, Amber Cano Martin.
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks again to the League of Women Voters for your recommendations on the charter. I found that document really helpful. And also, I just wanted to raise a question about the Charter Review Commission and their particular process for recommending changes to the charter. I understand they had a retreat recently, and there was no recording of who voted for what change. And I think that there's, considerations of open meeting law, and that for there to be trust in the process, that we should have as much transparency as possible in the actual process itself. What are the recommendations that I like? There's a lot of them that I like. I like the idea of having a mayor-council model going forward for more accountability from the executive branch of government. I think that each town councilor should be on an equal number of committees to have equal input, and also not having two councilors spending, an unequal amount of time. And I also think that committees could be held not during work hours, please, for those of us who have full-time jobs. Applications for seats on town committees and boards, as I've said, I've tried to get on boards and haven't been able to, so with the consent of applicant, having a listing of who applied and what their qualifications were available to everybody. Residents, members of Finance Committee, great that they're on it, but they should also have a vote. And term limits on the council president and vice president to increase the number of voices. And also a 6-year term limit for the council and all the other positions, I think would be really smart of us to get more participation. And there's a lot of other things I like too, but I can't get to them all. Thanks for all the hard work to everyone who put these together.
Okay, thank you. Now to District 4, Jennifer Todd.
I also appreciated many of the recommendations and the very careful study that the League of Women Voters of Amherst dedicated to the charter review process. I agree with Amber. I support term limits for counselors. I know that that is controversial, and some people will respond that, well, elections are town limits. But I think it's difficult to beat, not impossible, but difficult to beat incumbents, and I think it would really open up I think I get concerned about entrenched power when counselors are on the council for a very long time, no matter who they are or their positions. I also agree that I would and these are recommendations that I made when the Charter Review Commission sought input from the town councilors. I think that we need to be more transparent in our board and commission appointment process. Those boards, commissions, and committees that are appointed by the town manager, I think, I know in Northampton, the public is aware of who the applicants are, and I think that would help not shroud it in so much mystery in Amherst. And I would even be open to the council appointed committees, which are Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Board, and Finance Committee. Perhaps those could also be elected, because I think the process has become way too politicized, so we are not having all positions represented on those very important boards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoops.
I'm having trouble with this.
Oh, okay.
This keeps falling off. Excuse me.
Okay, you're done.
Yeah, I
All
am.
right. Dylan Maxfield.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying I was sad to see the end of town meeting. If you ask me what I think the best form of local government is for Massachusetts, it's your town meeting select board, so I was sad to see it go. I was sad to see us adopt what I think is the worst form of local government, which is an extremely large town council with no mayor. It's the form of government we have. It sounds like, you know, it's the one people wanted to go for. And I will say, I do think having the council and town manager, I think Paul Bockelman does a good job, but it's just not my favorite form of government. So I would be open to definitely the input from the Charter Commission of the changes that they want to make if we're really looking to stick with what we have and just kind of clean it up around the edges, better transparency, better participation. Sure, I'm for that. You know, long term, I think it might be worth looking into, do we want to switch over to a more traditional mayoral system of our town government, just because I think it would be, again, would I prefer the select board? Absolutely, but if we're going to take that step, I think we should take that step fully into actually having a mayoral election.
Okay, thank you. We now turn to District 3 and George Ryan.
So I'm one of those counselors that was in fact frustrated, and I can't remember now how I voted, but I guess I could go look it up. They've had almost 2 years, and we're not going to get a report. It's going to be for the next council, which I may or may not be on. So there's a lot of speculation, but I don't actually have anything concrete in front of me to comment on, because I don't have a report from this body. So I don't really know what to say. The devil's in the details. Some of the things that have been mentioned, Dylan mentioned a couple of things, are beyond the scope of this body. The form of government we have can't be changed. That would require a new charter commission and a tremendous lift. Maybe some people are eager to do that, and we'll see. But at the moment, we're talking about sort of minor changes, not necessarily insignificant, but I don't really know what they are because I don't have a report. So, and I'm not going to get one in this term. So I guess I'll give you my answer, if I'm still around, in the next cycle.
Thank you. Patrick Drum?
Yeah. So as far as the charter review process, you know, I would love to see more transparency around it. I was able to attend a couple of the sessions, but I will say that a lot of my neighbors had no idea it was even happening. So definitely more outreach on that. And then as far as some of the recommendations, like Amber, I have volunteered to try and get on a couple of the committees in town. I've been turned down and was not provided a reason why. So would love to have, again, more transparency around that. And then I know George just said that it's not up to this committee to change the form of government, but I'll echo some of the other folks up here and say that I would also love to see a mayoral form of government. I think Amherst, I believe it's still the largest city in Hampshire County. With the student population, we're larger than Northampton and Holyoke for whatever reason. I'll give my time back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heather Lord?
Thank you. I want to first thank the Charter Review Committee because they have put in so many hours and so much outreach. And maybe, I'm sure we could have done better outreach. And I said this Monday night, we found out they needed a budget. They've been down one person. There's so many reasons, but I just want to say thank you. And I want to hold the town council accountable for the no report because we were supposed to get a preliminary report in April. It didn't come. None of us followed up that I know of to say, hey, what's up? Can we help? What's going on? And then there was going to be another one in June that we did not get. So when they came in October, if we didn't get those two other preliminary, here's the progress, am I going to be surprised that? So I'm holding myself as well accountable that I wish I had reached out, realized, and tried to support them in that. Oh, you're eating up all your time. Okay, so when I heard this question, the three things I wrote down were efficiency, transparency, and sharing power. I would love good government recommendations from that charter thing about efficiency. Do we waste, like the studies and all these other things like it has been mentioned? Transparency, I am worried about our lack of transparency. I thought there was more, and I know there's an intent or a hope to be more transparent. So how does that look, and how do we show up better? And then sharing power. Twice now there's been an issue, a controversial decision about a non-reappointment on a committee. I also wasn't selected for a committee before I was town council. So I'd like to maybe look at that and figure out what's going on, how can we make this more equitable, not all of it on the town manager. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving to District 1. Freka?
I'd like to read the question again. What type of good government recommendation do you want to see in the charter review process? The process is ongoing. They're writing a report. This question can't really be answered by anyone here except you were part of the public discussion that went into the writing of that report. For those who are running for town council then, what is needed are not a wish list or recommendations. What you actually want to do is have an open mind, a balanced view. A lot of recommendations will come. I would hope that those who look at those recommendations go in there not just to get their own view across, but consider the entire review as a whole. I think something that councillors could also do is go over the rules of procedure. That's something that is within our purview. And then I think finally, what councillors should be thinking about is how to better communicate the process of government. People in the town are not educated about what the council does, what the town manager can do. We have a role to educate those who we represent.
Thank you. Jillian?
Yeah, so I think I'll focus on one, just very quickly on the process, and just having listened to the most recent meeting and the report being delayed, I think that ultimately leaders are responsible. I've overseen many teams of people and have had many deadlines that have not been met, and anytime that that happens or the outcomes aren't what I wanted, I look to myself first. That's, you know, the first place I go, and I would like to see more of that, sort of setting that example. These are volunteer committees who are spending a ton of their time working for us. So I really appreciate the work that they've done so far. And they've expressed many challenges. It's the first time we've gone through this process. So there have been challenges that have come up and I think could have been better addressed and handled. In terms of the actual recommendations, I think that the League of Women Voters process was a lesson in good community engagement. I think we heard a lot from that, and we've heard a lot I've heard a lot at the doors. I've heard a lot listening to some of the other sessions. So I think if I'm going to use this moment to amplify the voices of constituents that I've heard, I think some of the most popular things that I agree with are, like others have said, the town manager position being problematic in terms of just sort of a breakdown of representation between constituents and the town manager. I think term limits are absolutely something that a lot of people are interested in. And I've also heard a lot about trying to line up election dates, our town municipal elections, and exploring whether we can align with the state elections.
Thank you. And Vincent O'Connor?
Yeah, so I actually wrote a series of recommendations to the review committee. And one of them was that we need to integrate the elected school committees and Jones Library trustees into the council's processes, the finance committee, to have a person who's elected at large be confined to a 3-minute statement before the finance committee, while the finance committee reviews the school budget that person has helped put together with 4 others, is nonsense. There needs to be at least 2 school committee members and a public member appointed by the school committee on the finance committee for the review of the school budget. And the council needs to tell the manager that the only thing he needs to do about the school budget is to put in his budget the amount of voted by each of the school committees. He has never been given a recommendation having to do with anything about the management of the schools. He needs not to be involved in the budget process. Finally, I think we need to have more in-person meetings in terms of, that's something that can be done. To have the Zoning Board of Appeals dealing with an issue that affects your neighborhood from their homes while you all sit in your homes, they should be sitting in front of the people who are going to be affected by their decisions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're almost to 8:30, so rather than starting another question, what we're going to do is to move on to closing statements. And each candidate will have 1 minute to speak, but before we do that, I do have some statements from Pam Rooney and Kathy Shane. So I'm going to read those so that they at least have the people in the district know what their position is. They weren't able to be here tonight. So Kathy Shane said, I am running for re-election to use my skills as an economist to address Amherst's fiscal and growth challenges. My top priorities include support the new elementary school opening in 2026, prioritize spending on schools and essential services, repair roads, ensure that development enhances our community, protects open space and farms, and addresses climate change, and respond to North Amherst concerns. And she's not more specific, so I'm assuming that you may know what she's talking about. We face difficult choices. I will seek to forge consensus with financial accountability. Trained as an economist, I have over 45 years of experience working on public concerns. As chair of the elementary school building, finance, and joint capital planning committees, I have knowledge to build on. If reelected, I commit to listen and be a strong, independent voice for District 1 and all of Amherst. The other closing statement is from Pamela Rooney, who is from District 4. And she is saying, please vote for Pam Rooney for District 4. I'm a staunch advocate for the well-being of District 4 residents. I support sensible zoning like the University Drive overlay as a reasonable location for higher density housing, and support keeping a limit of 4 unrelated people to live in a home. As a co-sponsor of a stronger rental registration program, we now have a mandatory periodic inspection of all rental units to improve health and safety conditions. Our nuisance property bylaw was also strengthened to engage owners and property managers earlier in the nuisance correction process. Both will benefit neighbors. I will work to obtain equitable payment from state lands and infrastructure, and I will work on rent stabilization as well as the opportunity for tax relief for owner-occupied properties. Thank you, Pam Rooney. So with that said, each of you will be given 60 seconds rather than the 90 seconds to give your closing statements. And
Talk fast.
take a deep breath. I'm sure you've all prepared them ahead of time. And I think what we'll do is we'll start down at that end and work our way this way.
Okay. I believe Amherst is at an inflection point. With our long-term residents accounting for a third or less of our town's population, the council must adopt and implement policies that actively work to reverse the trend of a declining non-student population. Just this year, the state of Massachusetts implemented its by right accessory dwelling unit, or ADU legislation. The statewide law will increase housing density without Amherst having to make any changes to our local zoning bylaws. The ability to build these ADUs is a wonderful way to produce much-needed new housing. However, because Amherst is a university town, it is fair to assume that many, if not most, of these accessory units will be built to serve the off-campus student housing market. For this reason, it is imperative that any additional changes Amherst may make to our local zoning bylaws be crafted to incentivize new construction designed and priced not just for students, but for our year-round community of families, retirees, and the local workforce as well. For decades, families have moved to Amherst for...
Thank you.
Really? Okay.
60 seconds.
Yep.
Sorry.
Pardon? Yes, did I say to everybody 60 seconds? So you had 90 seconds before, so it's a little bit shorter.
No, okay.
Okay.
Well, vote for Jennifer Town for District 4. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us.
Okay, moving on to Dylan Maxfield.
Yeah, so I agree with the problems entirely as Jennifer sees them. 2/3 of our populations are students. That's putting a lot of pressure onto our neighborhoods, and it's making it very, very expensive to live here. Where I think I disagree in approach is as we build housing that's not attractive to students, we're not doing that. We are building housing that's attractive to students because all housing is going to be attractive to students because there's such a high demand. I've been speaking to students. They don't particularly want to live in the studios or the one-bedrooms that are $2,200 on East Pleasant. They end up there because it's the only place they could find. So all housing is being taken up by students because we're not providing housing that would be attractive to them. I think we could provide housing that would be attractive to students, where we would want them in town, where they could afford it, that would take pressure off of our neighborhoods to make it so there isn't such an incentive for developers to buy our single-family homes, convert them into dwelling units with an accessory dwelling unit for 8 units, making it that they're now generating $8,000 a month off that. I think we address that by addressing the core issue, which is student housing.
Thank you. Okay, George Ryan?
I've served District 3 for 5 years, and I'm proud of my service, and I'm eager to go back. If reelected, I will use my experience to focus on the specific needs of District 3 residents, and in particular issues that concern their quality of life. I want the residents of my district to believe that their government works for them. I believe as a district councilor, I have an obligation to listen. Throughout my 5 years on the council, I've conducted regular district meetings, and I always make myself available to residents to hear their concerns. I also have an obligation to inform. I've sent out a monthly newsletter whose purpose is to keep residents in the know. Right now, it's issue 83. I have over 430 subscribers. And finally, I have an obligation simply to make decisions on the best information I have in the long-term interests of the residents and our community.
Thank you. Heather Lord?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, to everyone in attendance online and in person, and to my fellow candidates. I'm deeply grateful. My name is Heather Holla-Lord, and it has been my honor to represent District 3 on the Amherst Town Council for the past 2 years. Thank you for the opportunity to work together this term. I'm running for re-election because our work is far from done. The priorities I embrace come from so many of you and are rooted in equity, affordable housing, climate justice, quality infrastructure, uplifting our youth, and serving our elders. I'm here to listen and to lead from a heart-centered and human-centered approach. My commitment is to earn and sustain your trust through transparency, accountability, compassion, and a deep respect for all members of our community. The people who call Amherst home is what makes this town wonderful. And together we can make it a better version of itself. So if you live in District 3, I would be honored to have your vote and to continue this journey with you. Thank you.
Okay, and Patrick Drum?
Thank you. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and everyone here and virtually. You know, I'm running. I've been in Amherst for a total of 12 years now. We moved back to Amherst 5 years ago to raise our family. We're proud to have our kids in the school district and, you know, really hoping to bring some transparency to our town government. Not just in terms of outreach, but also in terms of bringing some sort of process from start to finish to our town decisions. I think a lot of decisions are made with not necessarily a whole lot of insight into the future of these bylaws being passed, whether it's in regards to funding or just impacts to other folks in the community. And that's really what I'm running on. And if you're in District 3, I would love your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving down to Lynn Griesemer.
Thank you. I've said this many times. Councils don't just operate, they have to work. I worked hard on behalf of my neighbors and the whole community to make progress towards our goals. And it starts with residents, and then it stretches out to the communities around us and advocating at the state. I want you to think about what Amherst has accomplished. A new school going up, a new library going up, renovations at the senior center. We still need to, however, build our DPW and our fire and EMS station. And we need to make sure that in the process, we continue to protect our environment and our water supply, et cetera. In the process of doing that, we also need to balance our budgets with strong schools and government. So as we go forward, we continue to need to seed affordable housing and protect our now greatly improved recreation spaces, as well as look for opportunities for additional tax revenue, such as the
Thank you.
overlay on University Drive. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm realizing that I actually did make the mistake. It's the names were backwards, so there we go. I'm going to go with Amber Cano Martin.
Thank you. So I just want to take a moment to address the moment that we're in. A lot of us come in here with really heavy on our hearts the national political situation, sliding into fascism and authoritarianism. And maybe it's hard to keep your mind on the local. But I just want to remind folks, the local is more important than ever because we can protect each other, we can take care of each other, we can protect our neighbors who are targeted by the Trump administration, immigrants, people of color, queer folks, workers. And we can come up with local alternatives and strategies and policies that are rooted in solidarity and the common good. It requires, though, people who are dedicated to that, people who understand that real change comes through organizing, activism, and collective action, and who are able to get people involved, as well as people on the council who are willing to fight for the things that reflect our values, such as fully funded schools, affordable housing, roads, racial justice, and climate change, which are all priorities of my campaign. And I think that this town council, while often saying it's a priority, has not
Thank you.
acted. Thank you.
Jason Dorney?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to everybody for attending and for all the candidates here. I think Amherst is a fantastic place to live for some people. I would like to see it be a fantastic place to live for everybody. I think that we need to address housing and in doing so, address a diverse options in housing so that we are giving everybody an opportunity to live in a town like this. We also need to utilize housing and a larger tax base to increase our town's revenues so that we do have the funding to pay for all of the good things that we want to do here. We have a lot of ambition, and I think we can be, there's so much that we can do. There's so much potential in this town, but we have to make commitments to spend the money and to fund the things that actually allow us to live the values that we profess to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent O'Connor?
I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Amherst Media, and the folks who have come here and viewed us at home and see the repeats of the videos. If you want our roads repaired, our schools funded properly, our rents stabilized or reduced rather than being driven up by new luxury-priced housing, and oppose the Montague Road sprawl proposal, on Tuesday, November 4th, cast one of your 2 votes for District 1 Councilor for me, Vince O'Connor. Also, please cast your other District 1 Council vote for Jill Breivik, a younger political activist with children in our public schools and the energy to make changes at the council. Finally, please vote for Alicia Walker and Allegra Clark for 2 of the 3 at-large seats, both regional school graduates with children in our public schools. Thank you.
Brecca?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to all of you who have listened and will listen. I arrived in Amherst right when COVID hit and the place was empty, but I got to meet people who were so friendly. They've kept me here up till now. My vision is that we can be that neighborly, not just to me, but to everyone in town. My vision is that we will have better roads, safer sidewalks, that we'll be a town that cares about diversity, not just in speech, but in action, and that will be a town that actually takes care of the environment. If you resonate with that vision, then vote for me, November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jillian?
Close it down. I'm so grateful to have been part of this conversation tonight. I'm running for office because the residents of Amherst deserve leaders who bring strong, well-informed strategies and who know how to create a positive and engaging culture on the council. At my core, I'm a community organizer, a creative problem solver, a parent of public school kids, a champion of smart housing policy and conservation. I'm a fierce advocate who fights with integrity, not just when it's easy or convenient, but every day, even when it means giving up my own comfort or privilege. I've spent almost 2 decades working in nonprofits that serve historically excluded communities. If elected, I will use my platform to amplify the diverse voices of our residents and stand up against systemic oppression and the erosion of democracy on the state and national levels. I'm a numbers person and a words person, and I can budget for high-impact programming with limited resources and write a killer proposal, but I'm also a poet, a listener, and a connector. I love a good chat, and clearly I'm going over with my time, so I'll end on that.
And thank you, Jillian.
Thank you.
Let's have a big round of applause for all the candidates. And I'm going to call for another round of applause for our timekeepers. And also, and for these women here who took all of your questions and tried to come up with a question that really reflected what kinds of things you asked. So, thank you. Okay, so thank you again for joining us this evening, and check out LWV, League of Women Voters, Amherst.org, and the town clerk's website for more information. And good night.
And thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Charlotte.
90 seconds goes fast.
Well, especially when you-
Thank you.